For 15 years, Gabriel St. James hid from the world until a storm, a broken-down van, and a fearless delivery woman shattered his solitude. Naomi Carter isn't intimidated by his wealth or his walls, but as love pulls him out of hiding, a dangerous past threatens everything. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The rain pounded against the windows of Gabriel St. James's mansion. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the vast grounds that surrounded the property. Gabriel stood by the window in his office, watching the storm with a glass of whiskey in his hand. At 45, he had everything money could buy: a successful investment company, a collection of luxury cars, and a mansion that most people only saw in magazines. What he didn't have was someone to share it with, and that's exactly how he wanted it. Mr. St. James, his housekeeper Martha, called from the doorway. The grocery delivery service called. They'll be here shortly with your order. Gabriel nodded without turning around. Just have them leave it at the door as usual. In this storm? That seems rather... That's what they're paid for, he interrupted, his voice cold and final. Martha sighed quietly and left the room. She had worked for Gabriel for 12 years and had watched him build higher and higher walls around himself. She remembered when he used to smile before his engagement to Victoria had ended so disastrously. Now he rarely left the mansion except for essential business meetings, preferring to run his empire from behind closed doors. 20 minutes later, the security system alerted Gabriel that someone was at the gate. He glanced at the monitor on his desk and saw a small delivery van. With a push of a button, he opened the gate remotely and then returned to his whiskey and the financial reports on his desk. Naomi Carter gripped the steering wheel of her delivery van as she drove through the imposing gates of the St. James estate. At 30, she had been working 3 jobs to save enough money to go back to school. The delivery job was her newest gig, and she had heard rumors about the reclusive millionaire who lived in this mansion. Just drop off the groceries and go, she reminded herself. No big deal. But as she approached the circular driveway, her van made a strange noise and then sputtered to a stop. Naomi tried to restart it, but nothing happened. No, 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 she muttered, hitting the steering wheel in frustration. Not now! She looked through the pouring rain at the mansion ahead. She'd have to ask to use a phone. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed the grocery bags, covered them with her jacket, and made a dash for the front door. Inside, Gabriel was startled by a rapid knocking. No one ever knocked on his door. Deliveries were left outside, and his few visitors, mostly business associates, called ahead and were met at the gate by security. The knocking persisted. Gabriel rose from his chair, irritated by the interruption, and strode to the front door. When he opened it, he found a woman standing there, soaking wet, with grocery bags clutched to her chest. "Mr. St. James?" she asked, water dripping from her dark curls. "I'm Naomi from Fresh Deliveries. I've got your groceries, but my van broke down in your driveway. Could I use your phone to call for help?" Gabriel stared at her for a moment. It had been a long time since he'd spoken directly to a stranger, especially a woman. "Leave the groceries," he said flatly. "I'll have my driver take you back to town." Naomi's eyebrows rose. "That's it? No come in out of the rain? No let me help you with those bags?" She shook her head, sending water droplets flying. "I've heard you were rude, but wow." Gabriel was taken aback by her directness. No one spoke to him that way. Everyone either treated him with excessive respect or fear. Everyone except this dripping wet delivery woman, who was looking at him as if he were the one being unreasonable. "Fine," he said stiffly. "Come in." Naomi stepped inside, her eyes widening, as she took in the grand entryway with its marble floors and sweeping staircase. "Nice place," she commented, trying not to drip too much on the floor. "Where should I put these?" Before Gabriel could answer, Martha appeared. "Oh my, you're soaked." "Through, let me take those." She hurried forward to take the grocery bags. "You poor thing. Come to the kitchen and get dry." Gabriel watched as Martha led Naomi away, chatting easily as if they were old friends. He stood there for a moment, then followed them to the kitchen, curious despite himself. In the warm, spacious kitchen, Martha had given Naomi a towel for her hair and was making hot tea. Naomi sat at the counter, looking completely at ease in surroundings that would intimidate most people. "My van just died," she was explaining to Martha. "I need to call my boss and a tow truck." "You can use my phone," Gabriel said, entering the kitchen. He held out his cell phone to her. Naomi smiled at him, a genuine warm smile that made something stir inside him, something he hadn't felt in a very long time. "Thanks," she said, taking the phone. "I promise I won't make any international calls." Gabriel found himself almost smiling at her joke. He watched as she called her boss, explaining the situation in a straightforward way without making excuses. When she finished, she handed the phone back to him. "My boss will send someone to pick me up, but it might take a while in this storm, and the tow truck can't come until tomorrow." She looked out the window at the rain. "I guess I'm stuck here for a bit." "I'll drive you," Gabriel said suddenly, surprising himself. Martha looked at him in astonishment. Gabriel St. James hadn't voluntarily left the mansion for a non-business reason in years. "You don't have to do that," Naomi said. "I don't want to be a bother." "It's no bother," he insisted, feeling strangely determined. "I'll get my car keys." 20 minutes later, Gabriel was driving Naomi back to town in his rarely used Bentley. The rain had lessened but still drummed steadily on the roof of the car. They drove in silence for a few minutes before Naomi spoke. "So, is it true what they say? That you haven't left that mansion except for work in 15 years? Gabriel gripped the steering wheel tighter. "People talk too much." "That's not an answer," Naomi pointed out, "but I'll take it as a yes." He glanced at her, annoyed yet intrigued by her persistence. "Why does it matter to you?" Naomi shrugged. "Just seems like a waste. All that money, that beautiful house, and you hide away from the world." She looked out the window at the passing trees. "Life's too short to spend it hiding." "I'm not hiding," Gabriel said defensively. "I'm protecting myself." "From what? Happiness?" Naomi asked, then immediately shook her head. "Sorry, that was way out of line. I don't even know you." Gabriel was silent for a long moment. "Where do you live?" he asked finally, changing the subject. "The apartment complex on Elm Street," she directed. "Second building on the right." When they arrived, Gabriel pulled up in front of her building. It was a modest apartment complex, nothing fancy but well-maintained. "Thanks for the ride," Naomi said, reaching for the door handle. Then she turned back to him with a smile. "And for not firing me when I called you rude." For the first time in years, Gabriel felt the corners of his mouth turn up in a small smile. "You're welcome." After Naomi got out and ran through the rain to her building's entrance, Gabriel sat in his car, watching until she disappeared inside. He couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to him so openly, without fear or an agenda. It was refreshing. The next morning, Gabriel couldn't stop thinking about Naomi. Her directness, her easy smile, the way she seemed completely unimpressed by his wealth and status. On impulse, he picked up his phone and called Fresh Deliveries. "I'd like to place an order," he said when the receptionist answered. "And I'd like the same delivery person as yesterday. Naomi, I believe her name was." Later that day, Naomi was surprised to see the St. James mansion on her delivery schedule again. When she arrived, in a different van as hers was still being repaired, she rang the doorbell expecting Martha to answer. Instead, Gabriel opened the door himself. "You're back," he said, as if he hadn't specifically requested her. "Looks like it," Naomi replied, handing him the grocery bags. "Though I'm surprised. I figured after yesterday you'd request anyone but me." Gabriel took the bags, his fingers briefly brushing against hers. The small contact sent an unexpected jolt through him. "I don't mind directness," he said. "It's rare in my world." Naomi looked at him curiously. "Your world must be pretty boring then." Before Gabriel could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it and frowned. "I need to take this. Business." Naomi nodded. "Well, enjoy your groceries, Mr. St. James." As she turned to leave, Gabriel found himself not wanting her to go. "Wait," he called. "Would you like to have dinner sometime?" The words were out before he could stop them. He hadn't asked a woman to dinner in 15 years. Naomi looked surprised, then smiled. "Are you asking me on a date, Mr. Reclusive Millionaire?" "It's just dinner," Gabriel said quickly. "And please call me Gabriel." "Okay, Gabriel," she said, testing his name. "Dinner sounds nice. But I should warn you, I don't impress easily, and I always speak my mind. I'm counting on it, he replied, feeling a long-dormant part of himself awakening. As Naomi drove away, she couldn't help but wonder what she was getting herself into. The mysterious Gabriel St. James was known for his wealth, his business success, and his complete withdrawal from society. Yet something about him intrigued her, not his money or his power, but the sadness she glimpsed behind his cold exterior. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Gabriel stood at the window watching Naomi's van disappear down the driveway. For the first time in 15 years, he felt something stir within him, something he had sworn never to feel again. Hope. And it terrified him. Martha found him still standing there minutes later. "Is everything all right, Mr. St. James?" Gabriel turned to her, his expression troubled. "I just asked the delivery woman to dinner." Martha's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with understanding. "It's about time you let someone new into your life," she said gently. "I'm not letting her in," Gabriel insisted. "It's just dinner." But as he walked back to his office, Gabriel knew he was lying to himself. Something about Naomi had already slipped past his carefully constructed defenses, and he wasn't sure whether to embrace it or run from it as fast as he could. What he didn't know was that the simple act of asking Naomi to dinner had set in motion events that would force him to confront the past he'd been running from for 15 years. His carefully isolated world was about to be turned upside down, and the safe, empty existence he'd created for himself would never be the same again. The restaurant Gabriel chose for their dinner was exclusive and elegant, with soft lighting and private booths that ensured discretion. He arrived early and requested the most secluded table available. As he waited, he checked his watch repeatedly, wondering if Naomi would actually show up. When she walked in, several heads turned. Not because she was dressed extravagantly. In fact, her simple black dress was modest compared to what the other women wore, but because she carried herself with a natural confidence that drew attention. Gabriel stood as she approached the table. "You came," he said, unable to hide his surprise. "I said I would," Naomi replied with a smile. "Though I almost didn't recognize you outside your mansion, you look different in the real world." As she sat down, Gabriel noticed she seemed slightly uncomfortable. "Is something wrong?" "Just not used to places this fancy," she admitted, glancing around at the crystal chandeliers and silk tablecloths. "My usual dinner spot is the diner where I work my morning shift." Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "You have multiple jobs." "3, actually," Naomi said without embarrassment. "Diner in the mornings, bookstore afternoons, and deliveries in between. I'm saving for nursing school." The waiter appeared with menus, and Gabriel ordered wine for the table. When the waiter left, Naomi looked at Gabriel directly. "So are you going to tell me why you really asked me to dinner?" she asked. "Because I'm guessing you don't usually date delivery women." "I don't usually date anyone," Gabriel replied honestly. He paused, then added, "You're different. You treated me like a person, not a bank account or a reclusive celebrity." "That's because you are a person," Naomi said simply. "A grumpy one, but still just a person." Gabriel actually laughed, a rusty sound he barely recognized as his own. "It's been a long time since anyone called me grumpy to my face. Well, get used to it. I told you I speak my mind." Naomi opened her menu and her eyes widened at the prices. "Wow, these better be the best steaks on the planet." Gabriel watched her, amused by her candidness. "Order whatever you want." Their conversation flowed more easily than Gabriel had expected. Naomi told him about growing up in a small town, moving to the city for better opportunities, and her dream of becoming a nurse. Gabriel found himself sharing bits about his business, safe topics that didn't require him to reveal anything personal. "You're good at that," Naomi observed after he finished explaining a recent investment. "Good at what?" "Talking without really saying anything about yourself." She took a sip of wine. "I know about your company's profit margins, but nothing about what makes Gabriel St. James tick." Gabriel tensed slightly. "There's not much to tell." "I doubt that," Naomi said. "A man doesn't lock himself away for 15 years without a story." When he remained silent, she added, But I won't push, not tonight anyway. As the evening progressed, Gabriel found himself relaxing. There was something soothing about Naomi's presence, the way she didn't seem to care about impressing him or getting something from him. When they finished dessert, he was almost sad the night was coming to an end. "I'll drive you home," he offered as they stepped outside the restaurant. Naomi shook her head. "I can take a cab. I know your mansion is in the opposite direction." "I insist," Gabriel said, surprising himself with how much he wanted to extend their time together. During the drive to Naomi's apartment, a comfortable silence settled between them. When they arrived, Gabriel walked her to the door of her building. "I had a good time," Naomi said, turning to face him. "Which I honestly didn't expect." "Neither did I," Gabriel admitted. He hesitated, then asked, "Would you like to do this again?" Naomi looked up at him, her expression thoughtful. "Yes, but next time let's go somewhere less fancy. I want to see if you can handle a normal place with normal people." Gabriel felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety at the thought. "I'll try," he promised. "Good." Naomi smiled, then surprised him by standing on her tiptoes and kissing his cheek. "Good night, Gabriel." As he drove home, Gabriel touched the spot where Naomi had kissed him. The simple gesture had affected him more than he wanted to admit. For the first time in years, he found himself looking forward to tomorrow. The next morning, Gabriel had just finished a business call when Martha entered his office with a strange expression on her face. "Sir, there's someone here to see you. She says her name is Victoria Pierce." Gabriel froze. Victoria, the woman who had betrayed him 15 years ago, the reason he had shut himself away from the world. "Tell her to leave," he said coldly. "I tried, sir, but she was quite insistent. She says it's important." Before Gabriel could respond, a tall, elegantly dressed woman appeared in the doorway behind Martha. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, and her smile practiced. "Hello, Gabriel," Victoria said smoothly. "It's been a long time." Martha looked uncertainly between them, then quietly excused herself, closing the door behind her. Gabriel stood rigidly behind his desk. "What are you doing here, Victoria?" "Can't old friends catch up?" she asked, moving gracefully into the room. Her eyes took in the expensive furnishings. "You've done well for yourself." "We're not friends," Gabriel said flatly. "And you didn't answer my question." Victoria's smile faltered slightly. "I'm back in town because my husband and I are opening a new art gallery. I heard you've become quite the collector." "And you thought I'd what? Buy from you? Invest in your gallery?" Gabriel laughed bitterly. "After what you did?" Victoria sighed dramatically. "Gabriel, that was 15 years ago. We were young. Mistakes were made." "Mistakes?" Gabriel's voice hardened. "You slept with my brother the night before our wedding, then took half my company in the settlement. Those weren't mistakes, Victoria. Those were choices." Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "Ancient history, and look at you now. Richer than ever. I did you a favor." Gabriel stared at her, amazed by her audacity. The woman who had shattered his heart and his trust was standing in his office, acting as if she'd done nothing wrong. "Get out," he said quietly. "And don't come back." Victoria's expression hardened. "Fine. But this town isn't as big as you think, Gabriel. We're bound to run into each other again." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "By the way, I heard you were seen at Bellini's last night with some woman. Moving on at last?" Faye's question felt like an invasion, and Gabriel didn't dignify it with a response. After Victoria left, he stood at the window, his hands clenched into fists. Seeing her had brought back all the pain and humiliation he'd worked so hard to bury. This was exactly why he didn't let people into his life. They always ended up hurting you. When his phone rang, Gabriel almost didn't answer it. But when he saw Naomi's name on the screen, he'd given her his private number after their dinner. He found himself reaching for it. "Hello," he said, his voice still tense from the encounter with Victoria. "Hey, it's Naomi. Is this a bad time? You sound upset." Gabriel took a deep breath. "No, it's fine. What can I do for you?" "Well, I was thinking about our next date," Naomi said. "There's a food festival in the park this Saturday. Nothing fancy, just local restaurants setting up booths. Would you be interested?" The thought of going to a crowded public event made Gabriel immediately want to refuse, but then he thought about spending the afternoon with Naomi, and something within him shifted. Yes, I could do that, he said, surprising himself. Great. Meet me at the park entrance at noon. Naomi sounded genuinely pleased. After they hung up, Gabriel sat down heavily in his chair. What was he doing? First dinner at a restaurant? Now a public festival? And right after Victoria's unexpected visit had reminded him of all the reasons he had withdrawn from the world in the first place. Martha knocked and entered with a cup of coffee. Are you all right, sir? That woman, I'm fine, Gabriel said automatically. Martha gave him a knowing look. If you don't mind me saying, you haven't been fine in 15 years, but lately, since meeting Ms. Carter, you've seemed different, Gabriel. Didn't respond, but Martha's words stayed with him throughout the day. By the time Saturday arrived, he had almost convinced himself to cancel the date. But some new, unfamiliar part of him wanted to see Naomi again, wanted to experience something beyond the safe, empty routine of his carefully controlled life. The food festival was exactly as he feared, crowded, noisy, and overwhelming. Gabriel stood at the entrance, fighting the urge to turn around and go back to his mansion. Then he saw Naomi waving to him, her smile bright and genuine, and something inside him settled. You came, she said, sounding just as surprised as he had been at the restaurant. I said I would, he replied, echoing her words from their first date. Naomi grinned and took his hand, pulling him into the crowd. Come on, you have to try the tacos from this place. They're amazing. For the first hour, Gabriel was tense, constantly aware of the people around them, wondering if they recognized him. But gradually, as they moved from booth to booth, sampling different foods and laughing at Naomi's commentary, he began to relax. See? Not so terrible being around normal people, is it? Naomi asked as they sat on a bench eating ice cream. Gabriel looked at her, at the way the sunlight caught in her dark curls, and felt something warm unfurl in his chest. No, not terrible at all. Later, as they walked through the park, Naomi stopped suddenly. Oh no. What's wrong? Gabriel asked. Naomi was looking at a woman approaching them, a tall, elegant blonde whose face Gabriel recognized immediately. Victoria. That's my boss's wife from the bookstore, Naomi explained. She's not the easiest person to work with. Before Gabriel could warn her or suggest they leave, Victoria was upon them. Gabriel, she said with feigned surprise. What a coincidence. Naomi looked between them, confusion clear on her face. You two know each other. Oh, Gabriel and I go way back, Victoria said with a sly smile. Don't we, darling? Gabriel felt his jaw tighten. Victoria was just leaving. Victoria ignored him, turning to Naomi instead. You're the girl from the bookstore, aren't you, Natalie? Naomi, she corrected. And yes, I work for your husband, Mr. Pierce. Victoria's eyes widened with malicious delight. Well, isn't this interesting? Gabriel. St. James dating one of my husband's employees. She looked at Gabriel. You always did. Have a thing for women beneath your station. Naomi stiffened beside him, and Gabriel felt a surge of anger. That's enough, Victoria. Oh, I'm just getting started, Victoria said. Does she know about us, Gabriel, about what happened? Naomi looked up at Gabriel, questions in her eyes. He wanted to explain, to tell her the truth before Victoria could twist it, but the words caught in his throat. Victoria smiled, seeing his hesitation. I'll leave you two to your date. But, Gabriel, do come by the gallery opening next week for old time's sake. With that, she walked away, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Naomi turned to Gabriel. What was that about? Who is she to you? Gabriel looked around at the crowded park. Not here, he said. Let's go somewhere quiet. They ended up at a small cafe several blocks away. Once they had coffee, Naomi looked at him expectantly. Well, Gabriel took a deep breath. Victoria was my fiancée 15 years ago. Naomi's eyes widened. The one who... She didn't finish the sentence, but her expression showed she had put the pieces together. Yes, Gabriel confirmed. The reason... He struggled to find the words. The reason you locked yourself away, Naomi finished for him. What did she do? Gabriel had never told anyone the full story. It had been too humiliating, too painful, but looking at Naomi's open, honest face, he found himself wanting to share it. "We were engaged to be married," he began, his voice low. "The night before our wedding, I found her with my brother Ethan. They had been having an affair for months right under my nose." Naomi reached across the table and took his hand. The simple gesture of comfort nearly undid him. "It wasn't just the betrayal," Gabriel continued. "After I called off the wedding, Victoria sued me for half my company, claiming she had contributed to its success, and she won. She and Ethan took the money and disappeared together." "That's awful," Naomi said. Softly, "I'm so sorry." "I rebuilt the company, made it even more successful," Gabriel said. "But I couldn't rebuild my trust in people, so I stopped trying." Naomi squeezed his hand. "Until now?" The question hung between them, full of possibility and danger. Gabriel looked at their joined hands, then up at Naomi's face. In her eyes he saw no judgment, no calculation, only understanding and something else, something that both thrilled and terrified him. "I don't know," he admitted. "I want to try, with you, but I don't know if I can." Naomi nodded slowly. "I get it. Trust isn't easy once it's been broken." She paused, then added, "But isolation isn't the answer, Gabriel. It's just another kind of prison." As they left the cafe, Gabriel felt lighter having shared his secret, but he also felt vulnerable in a way he hadn't in years. He had let Naomi see behind his walls, and there was no going back. What he didn't know was that Victoria's surprise appearance was no coincidence. Her return to town and her sudden interest in his life had a purpose, one that would soon threaten not only his growing feelings for Naomi, but everything he had built over the past 15 years. As he drove Naomi home, Gabriel couldn't shake the feeling that by opening his heart even slightly, he had set himself up for another fall. And this time with Naomi, the fall could be even more devastating than before. In the weeks following their encounter with Victoria, Gabriel found himself spending more and more time with Naomi. Despite his fears and reservations, he couldn't deny that she brought a light into his life that had been missing for 15 years. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, Naomi convinced Gabriel to help at a community garden where she volunteered. He stood awkwardly in jeans and a t-shirt. Clothes Martha had to buy for him specially, as his wardrobe consisted mainly of expensive suits. "I'm not sure I'll be much help," Gabriel said, looking doubtfully at the gardening tools. "I've never planted anything in my life." Naomi handed him a pair of gloves with a grin. "There's a first time for everything. Besides, it's good for you to get your hands dirty once in a while." To his surprise, Gabriel enjoyed the simple work of planting vegetables alongside Naomi and the other volunteers. No one seemed to recognize him as the reclusive millionaire, and there was something freeing about being treated as just another person. "You're smiling," Naomi observed as they worked side by side. "It looks good on you." Gabriel realized she was right. He was smiling, and not just outwardly. Something inside him felt lighter, as if the walls he had built were beginning to crumble. As they were packing up to leave, Gabriel's phone rang. The caller ID showed it was his assistant, Robert. "Excuse me," he said to Naomi, stepping away to take the call. "Robert, what is it?" "Sir, I'm sorry to bother you on a weekend, but there's something you need to know." Robert's voice was tense. "Victoria Pierce and her husband have made an offer to buy Westland Properties." Gabriel froze. Westland Properties was one of his most valuable real estate holdings, a development he had built from the ground up after Victoria's betrayal. It was also adjacent to his mansion, providing the privacy and security he valued. "How did they get the capital for that?" Gabriel asked sharply. "I don't know, sir, but the offer is serious and the board is considering it. Tell them to do nothing until I get there. I'm on my way." Gabriel hung up and turned to find Naomi watching him with concern. "Something wrong?" she asked. Gabriel hesitated. He wasn't used to sharing his problems with anyone. "Business emergency. I have to go to the office." Naomi nodded, but he could see the disappointment in her eyes. "I understand. Duty calls." "I'll make it up to you," Gabriel promised, surprised by how much he meant it. "Dinner tomorrow?" Naomi smiled. "Sure. Call me when you're free." As Gabriel drove to his office, his Mind raced. Victoria's sudden interest in buying Westland properties couldn't be a coincidence. She was up to something, and he needed to figure out what before it was too late. At the office, Robert briefed him on the details of the offer. It was well above market value, suspiciously so. "They're meeting with the board on Monday," Robert explained. "But I don't understand why they want this property so badly. It's valuable, but not worth what they're offering." Gabriel stared out the window, thinking, "It's not about the property, it's about me." He turned to Robert. "Find out everything. You can about the Pierces' finances. Where they got this money, who's backing them. I want to know who I'm really dealing with." After Robert left, Gabriel sat alone in his office, feeling the familiar walls of suspicion and defensiveness rising around him again. Just when he had started to open up, to let Naomi in, Victoria had appeared to remind him why he had shut himself away in the first place. His phone buzzed with a text from Naomi. "Hope your emergency is resolving. Missed you this afternoon." The simple message cut through his dark thoughts. With Victoria, everything had been complicated, filled with hidden agendas and manipulation. With Naomi, things were straightforward. She said what she meant, and meant what she said. Gabriel made a decision. He would not let Victoria's games drive him back into isolation. Not this time. The next day, Gabriel met Naomi for dinner at a small Italian restaurant she had chosen. As they ate, he found himself telling her about Victoria's offer on Westland properties. "Do you think she's trying to get back at you for something?" Naomi asked. Gabriel shook his head. "Victoria doesn't do anything without a financial motive. She's after something, I just don't know what yet." Naomi reached across the table and took his hand. "Whatever she's planning, you'll figure it out. You're smarter than she is." Her confidence in him was both surprising and touching. Gabriel squeezed her hand, marveling at how natural it felt to be with her, to share his concerns. After dinner, they walked along the river that ran through the city. The night was warm, stars visible above despite the city lights. "Tell me something," Naomi said as they walked. "In all these years of hiding away, haven't you been lonely?" The question caught Gabriel off guard. "I don't know. Maybe. I got used to being alone." "That's not the same as not being lonely," Naomi pointed out gently. Gabriel was silent for a moment. "Yes," he admitted finally. "I've been lonely, but it felt safer than the alternative." "And now?" Naomi asked, stopping to look up at him. Gabriel looked into her eyes, feeling something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. "Now I'm not so sure anymore." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken emotions. Then slowly Gabriel leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, but deepened as Naomi responded, her arms sliding around his neck. When they finally broke apart, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers, his heart racing. He hadn't kissed anyone since Victoria, hadn't wanted to, but with Naomi, it felt right. It felt like coming home after a long, cold journey. "You're changing me," he whispered. "I don't know if that's good or bad." Naomi smiled. "I think it's good. Very good." Monday morning came too quickly. Gabriel arrived at his office early, prepared for the meeting with the board and the Pierces. Robert had gathered some information, but nothing that explained why Victoria and her husband were so interested in Westland properties. The boardroom was already full when Gabriel entered. He nodded to his board members, then froze when he saw who was sitting beside Victoria and her husband, Richard Pierce Ethan, his brother, the man who had betrayed him with Victoria 15 years ago. "Hello, Gabriel," Ethan said, standing. "It's been a long time." Gabriel felt as if he'd been punched. He hadn't seen or spoken to his brother since discovering him with Victoria. The sight of him now, sitting casually in Gabriel's boardroom as if nothing had happened, ignited a rage he thought he had buried long ago. "What is he doing here?" Gabriel demanded, his voice cold. Richard Pierce, a thin man with shrewd eyes, answered. "Ethan is our business partner in this venture. We thought it appropriate for him to be here." Gabriel looked at Victoria, who was watching the scene with barely concealed satisfaction. This was her plan, to force a confrontation with Ethan, to reopen old wounds. "The deal is off," Gabriel said flatly. "I won't sell to any of you." One of his board members cleared his throat. "Mr. St. James, their offer is substantially above market value. We have a fiduciary duty to consider it." Gabriel turned to the board. "I own 51% of this company. Nothing happens without my approval." He looked back at Victoria and Ethan. "And I do not approve this deal. Meeting adjourned." As the board members filed out, looking uncomfortable, Ethan approached Gabriel. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "We have nothing to talk about," Gabriel replied. "I think we do," Ethan insisted. "About Victoria, about what happened, about why we're really here." Gabriel stared at his brother, the man who had once been his best friend before becoming his worst betrayer. "Fine, my office, 5 minutes." After everyone else had left, Gabriel and Ethan sat across from each other in Gabriel's office. The silence between them was heavy with 15 years of unspoken words. "You look good," Ethan said finally. "Success suits you." "Cut the small talk," Gabriel said coldly. "What do you want?" Ethan sighed. "It's not what you think. I'm not here as Victoria's ally. In fact, Richard and I are barely speaking these days." Gabriel raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "You expect me to believe that? After you showed up with them today?" "I came back because I heard you were finally emerging from that fortress you built around yourself," Ethan said. "I heard you were seeing someone, a delivery woman named Naomi." Gabriel tensed. "How do you know about Naomi?" Victoria told me. "She's been watching you, Gabriel. She's obsessed with you, with what you've built. And she's not happy about Naomi. What does Victoria care?" "Who I date?" Gabriel asked. Ethan leaned forward. "Because she never got over you. The money she took, the marriage to Richard, it was all part of her plan to make you jealous, to make you fight for her. But you didn't. You disappeared instead." Gabriel shook, his head in disbelief. "That's insane." "That's Victoria," Ethan countered. "And now she's back with a new plan. She wants Westland Properties because it's next to your mansion. She wants to be close to you again." "And why should I believe anything you say?" Gabriel demanded. "You betrayed me just as much as she did." Ethan's face filled with regret. "I know, and I've regretted it every day since. Victoria manipulated me, Gabriel. She told me you were cheating on her, that you didn't really love her. I was drunk and stupid enough to believe her. By the time I realized the truth, it was too late." Gabriel stood, unable to sit still with the storm of emotions inside him. "Even if that's true, why come back now? Why get involved in Victoria's scheme?" "To warn you," Ethan said simply. "Victoria is dangerous when she doesn't get what she wants. And what she wants is you, or at least to destroy your chance at happiness with someone else." Gabriel stared out the window, processing this new information. Could Ethan be telling the truth, or was this just another betrayal in the making? "Stay away from me," Gabriel said finally. "And tell Victoria the same. I'm not the man I was 15 years ago. I won't be manipulated again." After Ethan left, Gabriel called Naomi. Hearing her voice steadied him, reminded him of what was real and true in his life now. "Can I see you tonight?" he asked. "Of course," Naomi replied. "Is everything okay? You sound upset." "I'll explain when I see you," Gabriel promised. That evening, Gabriel told Naomi everything, about the meeting, about Ethan's unexpected appearance, and about his brother's claims regarding Victoria. "Do you believe him?" Naomi asked when he had finished. Gabriel ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I don't know. Ethan was always the better liar of the two of us, but what he said about Victoria makes a twisted kind of sense." Naomi was quiet for a moment, thinking. "If he's telling the truth, then Victoria might try to cause trouble for us." "I won't let her hurt you," Gabriel said firmly. Naomi smiled at his protectiveness. "I'm not worried about me. I can handle Victoria. I'm worried about you, about what all this is bringing up for you." Gabriel took her hand, still amazed at how easily she saw through him. "I spent 15 years hiding from what they did to me. I don't want to hide anymore." "Good," Naomi said softly, "because I'm falling in love with you, Gabriel St. James. And I'd hate to lose you to ghosts from your past." Her words hit him like a wave, washing away the darkness Ethan and Victoria had brought back into his life. "I'm falling in love with you too," he admitted, the words feeling strange but right on his lips. The next day, Gabriel was reviewing contracts in his home office when Martha knocked on the door. "Sir, Miss Pierce is here again." She's very insistent. Gabriel sighed. Send her in. It's time I dealt with this once and for all. Victoria entered, looking as polished and perfect as ever. Gabriel, we need to talk about the offer. There's nothing to talk about, Gabriel said firmly. I'm not selling to you, Victoria. Not now, not ever. Victoria's pleasant expression faltered. You're making a mistake. Our offer is more than fair. This isn't about money, Gabriel replied. It's about whatever game you're playing. Ethan told me everything. Victoria's eyes narrowed. My husband's idiot brother doesn't know what he's talking about. Maybe not, Gabriel conceded. But I know you, Victoria, and whatever you're planning, it won't work. Not this time. Victoria stepped closer, her voice softening. Don't you ever think about what might have been, Gabriel, about us? We were good together once. No, Gabriel said with certainty. We weren't. I just didn't see it until it was almost too late. Victoria's face hardened. It's that delivery girl, isn't it, Naomi? You think she actually cares about you and not your money? Gabriel smiled, unfazed by her attempt to sow doubt. That's the difference between you and Naomi. She sees me for who I am, not what I have. We'll see about that, Victoria said, her voice cold. Everyone has a price, Gabriel. Even your precious Naomi. As Victoria turned to leave, Gabriel called after her. Stay away from Naomi, Victoria. I mean it. Victoria paused at the door. Or what, you'll disappear again? Hide in your mansion for another 15 years? She laughed. You've become predictable, Gabriel, and that makes you vulnerable. After she left, Gabriel immediately called Naomi, but she didn't answer. He tried again, a feeling of unease growing inside him. It wasn't like her not to answer, especially since they had plans to meet later. Gabriel grabbed his keys and headed for his car. He needed to find Naomi to warn her about Victoria's threats. As he drove toward the bookstore where she worked, his phone rang. He answered through the car's speaker system. Gabriel St. James, he said. Mr. St. James, this is Dr. Reynolds at City Memorial Hospital. We have a patient here, Naomi Carter. You're listed as her emergency contact. Gabriel felt his heart stop. What happened? Is she all right? There's been an accident, the doctor said. Ms. Carter was brought in an hour ago. She's in surgery now. I think you should come to the hospital right away. The world seemed to tilt beneath Gabriel as fear gripped him. After 15 years of hiding from pain, he had finally opened his heart to someone. And now just like that, he might lose her. As he raced toward the hospital, one thought repeated in his mind. If anything happened to Naomi, he would never forgive himself for bringing her into the dangerous game Victoria was playing, and he would never forgive Victoria for whatever part she had played in Naomi's accident. Gabriel raced through the hospital corridors, his heart pounding. The antiseptic smell and bright fluorescent lights intensified his feeling of dread. At the nurse's station, he tried to keep his voice calm. I'm here for Naomi Carter. I was told she's in surgery. A nurse looked up from her computer. Are you family? I'm Gabriel St. James. I'm her emergency contact, he said, struggling to control his fear. The nurse nodded. The doctor will be with you shortly. Please have a seat in the waiting area. Gabriel paced instead, unable to sit still. His mind raced with horrible possibilities. What had happened to Naomi? Was Victoria involved somehow? The thought made his blood boil. Mr. St. James? Gabriel turned to see a doctor approaching, her surgical cap still on. How is she? He demanded. Ms. Carter is stable, the doctor said. She was hit by a car while crossing the street outside the bookstore where she works. She has a broken leg, 2 broken ribs, and a concussion. We've set the leg and treated her other injuries. She's very lucky. It could have been much worse. Relief washed over Gabriel. She's going to be okay. The doctor nodded. She should make a full recovery, though it will take time. She's in recovery now. You can see her in about 30 minutes. Was it a hit and run? Gabriel asked, his suspicions about Victoria still strong. No, the driver stayed at the scene. According to the police report, it was an elderly man who lost control of his vehicle. A complete accident. Gabriel felt a mix of relief and shame. It hadn't been Victoria's doing after all. His paranoia had immediately jumped to the worst conclusion. When he was finally allowed to see Naomi, Gabriel felt his heart clench at the sight of her in the hospital bed. Her face was bruised, her leg in a cast, and an IV line ran into her arm. Despite it all, she managed a weak smile when she saw him. "Hey," she said, her voice hoarse. "Sorry about our date." Gabriel moved to her side, carefully taking her hand. "Don't joke, I was so worried." "It takes more than a car to get rid of me," Naomi said, then winced as she tried to adjust her position. "Don't move," Gabriel urged. "The doctor said you need to rest." Naomi looked at him with a surprising clarity given her condition. "You thought Victoria was behind this, didn't you?" Gabriel hesitated, then nodded. "The timing seems suspicious." "I told you I can handle Victoria," Naomi said, "though preferably not with my body as a bumper." Despite everything, Gabriel found himself smiling at her attempt at humor. Even injured in a hospital bed, Naomi's spirit remained unbroken. It was one of the many things he loved about her. Loved. The realization hit him with full force. He didn't just care for Naomi or enjoy her company. He loved her completely and without reservation. "You should go home and rest," Naomi told him, misinterpreting his sudden silence. "I'm not going anywhere tonight." "I'm staying," Gabriel said, firmly. "I'll be right here when you wake up." For the first time in 15 years, Gabriel spent the night in an uncomfortable chair instead of his luxurious mansion. He watched Naomi sleep, listened to her breathing, and made a decision. He would not let fear rule his life anymore. Not fear of betrayal, not fear of hurt, not even fear of loving someone again. The next morning, Martha arrived with clean clothes for Gabriel and flowers for Naomi. "The whole staff is worried about Miss Carter," Martha told him. "She's become quite special to all of us." "She's special to me too," Gabriel said quietly. "More than I realized until now." Martha smiled knowingly. "It's about time, sir." When Naomi woke, she seemed surprised to find Gabriel still there. "You really stayed all night? In that awful chair?" "I've been in worse places," Gabriel said, though in truth he couldn't remember the last time he'd been so uncomfortable or cared so little about his discomfort. A knock at the door interrupted them. To Gabriel's surprise, it was his brother Ethan. "I heard about the accident," Ethan said, looking genuinely concerned. "How is she?" Before Gabriel could answer, Naomi spoke up. "I'm fine, just a little banged up. And you must be the infamous brother." Ethan looked taken aback by her directness, then smiled. "Guilty as charged, though infamous is a bit harsh." "Is it?" Naomi asked pointedly. Ethan's smile faded. "No, I suppose not." He turned to Gabriel. "Can we talk just for a minute?" Gabriel hesitated, looking at Naomi. She nodded, giving him permission. 5 minutes, Gabriel told Ethan, following him into the hallway. "Victoria knows about the accident," Ethan said without preamble. "She's planning something, but I can't." "Figure out what?" "She's been meeting with Richard's lawyers secretly." "Why are you telling me this?" Gabriel asked, still not fully trusting his brother. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar that Gabriel felt an unexpected pang of nostalgia for the brother he had once been close to. "Because I'm trying to make amends," Ethan said. "I know it's 15 years too late, but I want to try, and because I think Victoria might be more dangerous than either of us realized." Gabriel studied his brother's face, looking for signs of deception but finding only what appeared to be genuine regret. "What happened with you and Victoria after—" Gabriel couldn't bring himself to finish the sentence. "After we betrayed you," Ethan finished for him. "We were together for about 6 months. Once the money was gone, so was the attraction. She left me for Richard, who had more to offer her. It took losing everything for me to see what she really was." Gabriel absorbed this information silently. Part of him wanted to tell Ethan it served him right, but another part, a part he thought had died long ago, felt a flicker of compassion for his brother. "I need to get back to Naomi," Gabriel said finally. "Of course," Ethan nodded. "Just be careful. Victoria isn't done yet." Back in Naomi's room, Gabriel found her looking through some paperwork a nurse had brought. "Everything okay?" she asked, watching his face carefully. Gabriel sat on the edge of her bed, taking her hand. "Ethan thinks Victoria is planning something. He doesn't know what." Naomi squeezed his hand. "Whatever it is, we'll handle it together." Together. The word filled Gabriel with both hope and fear. The doctor says you can leave tomorrow, but you'll need care for a few weeks. Your apartment has stairs and no elevator. I know, Naomi sighed. I was just looking at short-term rentals, but with my budget and 3 jobs, I can't work right now. Stay with me, Gabriel said before he could overthink it. The mansion has plenty of room, no stairs you'd need to use, and Martha would love the company. Naomi looked surprised. Are you sure? That's a big step. I'm sure, Gabriel said, realizing how much he meant it. I want you there, Naomi. I want to take care of you. The next day, Gabriel brought Naomi to his mansion. Martha had prepared a ground-floor guest suite, making it as comfortable as possible. As he helped Naomi settle in, Gabriel felt his home transform. With her there, the mansion no longer felt like the fortress he had hidden in for 15 years. It felt like a home. Over the next 2 weeks, they fell into a routine. Gabriel rearranged his work schedule to spend more time with Naomi. They watched movies together, played board games, and talked for hours. Gabriel found himself sharing stories from his past that he had never told anyone, and Naomi opened up about her own life, her dreams of becoming a nurse, her childhood in a small town, her parents who had died when she was in college. During this time, there was no sign of Victoria or her schemes. Gabriel began to wonder if Ethan had been wrong, if perhaps Victoria had given up and moved on. Then, on a quiet Sunday morning, Robert called. "Sir, you need to see the morning paper." Gabriel frowned. "Why? What's happened?" "There's an article about you and Miss Carter. It's not flattering." Gabriel felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "Bring it over, now." When Robert arrived with the newspaper, Gabriel took it to his office to read alone. The headline made his blood run cold. Reclusive. Billionaire's gold-digging girlfriend, the truth. About Naomi Carter. The article was a masterpiece of insinuation and half-truths. It suggested Naomi had engineered their meeting, targeting him for his money. It quoted anonymous sources, claiming she had a history of pursuing wealthy men. It even implied her accident had been staged to gain his sympathy. At the end of the article was a quote from a close friend of Mr. St. James that could only have come from Victoria. Gabriel has always been vulnerable to manipulative women who see him as a meal ticket. We're all concerned he's being taken advantage of again. Gabriel crumpled the newspaper in his fist, rage building inside him. This was Victoria's plan, to sow doubt, to make him question Naomi's feelings for him. It was a direct attack on the one thing that had brought happiness back into his life. He called his lawyer immediately. "I want a retraction and an apology from the paper. Today. And find out who gave them this story. I want them sued for defamation." After hanging up, Gabriel stood at his office window, trying to calm himself before facing Naomi. How would she react to the article? Would she leave, unwilling to deal with such public scrutiny and lies? The thought of losing her made him realize just how deeply she had become embedded in his life, his heart. In just a few weeks, she had accomplished what no one had in 15 years. She had brought him back to life. A soft knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Naomi stood there on her crutches holding the newspaper. "Martha showed me," she said quietly. "Victoria's work, I assume." Gabriel crossed the room to her. "I'm so sorry. My lawyer is demanding a retraction. This will be dealt with." To his surprise, Naomi looked more angry than hurt. "I don't care about the retraction, Gabriel. I care about what you think. Do you believe any of this?" "Of course not," Gabriel said immediately. "I know you, Naomi. The real you." Relief washed over her face. "Toys, good? Because that's all that matters to me. What the rest of the world thinks is their problem." Gabriel marveled at her strength, her clarity. Where Victoria had always cared desperately about public opinion, Naomi seemed genuinely unconcerned. "There's something else you should know," Naomi said, her expression turning serious. "Victoria came to see me at the bookstore before the accident. She offered me money to leave you alone." Gabriel felt his anger rising again. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew you'd be furious and I wanted to handle it myself," Naomi explained. "I told her to keep her money and stay away from us both. That's when she threatened me." "She threatened you?" Gabriel asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Naomi nodded. She said if I didn't leave you voluntarily, she'd make sure you came to your senses another way. I thought it was just empty threats, but after this article, Gabriel took her hand, his resolve hardening. This ends now. That afternoon, Gabriel asked Martha to stay with Naomi while he went out. He drove straight to the gallery Victoria, and Richard had recently opened. As he expected, he found Victoria there, supervising the hanging of a new exhibition. "We need to talk," Gabriel said, his voice cold. "In private." Victoria smiled as if pleased by his anger. "Of course, Gabriel. My office is this way." Once they were alone, Gabriel wasted no time. "The article, the threats to Naomi, it stops now, Victoria. All of it." Victoria perched on the edge of her desk, her smile never faltering. "I'm just looking out for your best interests, Gabriel. That woman is clearly after your money." "Like you were," Gabriel countered. "The difference is Naomi has never asked me for anything. She's worked 3 jobs to support herself. She refused to move in with me until her accident made it necessary. So, naive," Victoria sighed. "She's playing the long game, much smarter than I was." Gabriel stepped closer, his voice low and controlled. "Here's what's going to happen. You and Richard are going to print a full retraction and apology for that article. You're going to stay away from Naomi and me. And you're going to stop whatever scheme you're planning with my company or properties." Victoria's smile faded. "Or what? Or I'll make public what really happened 15 years ago," Gabriel said. "The affair with my brother, the lawsuit, all of it. I've kept quiet all these years because I wanted to put it behind me. But if you force my hand, I will destroy the carefully crafted image you and Richard have built." Victoria's face paled. "You wouldn't. Try me," Gabriel challenged. "You taught me one valuable lesson, Victoria. Sometimes you have to fight for what matters." As Gabriel turned to leave, Victoria called after him. "Is she really worth all this trouble, this delivery girl?" Gabriel paused at the door, looking back at his ex-fiancée with clarity. "She's worth everything. Because unlike you, she loves me for who I am, not what I have." As he walked out of the gallery, Gabriel felt as if a weight had been lifted. For 15 years, Victoria had held power over him, not because of anything she did, but because he had allowed his pain and humiliation to control his life. No more. When he returned to the mansion, Naomi was waiting for him in the garden, sitting in a wheelchair with her leg propped up. The afternoon sun caught in her dark curls, and Gabriel thought she had never looked more beautiful. "Did you confront her?" Naomi asked as he sat beside her. "Yes," Gabriel admitted. "I think she'll back off now." Naomi studied his face. "You look different, more at peace." Gabriel reached for her hand. "I am. For 15 years, I let what Victoria did define me. I hid away, convinced that was the only way to protect myself." He kissed her hand gently. "Then you showed up on my doorstep in the rain and everything changed. Well, my van breaking down turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me," Naomi said with a smile. "To us both," Gabriel agreed. He hesitated, then asked the question that had been on his mind since the hospital. "When you're fully recovered, will you stay? Not as a guest, but because this is your home too." Naomi's eyes widened. "Are you asking me to move in permanently?" "I'm asking for more than that," Gabriel said, suddenly sure of what he wanted. "I'm asking for a future together. I love you, Naomi. These past weeks have shown me that life without you isn't a life I want anymore." Tears filled Naomi's eyes. "I love you too, and yes, I want that future. With you." 6 months later, Gabriel stood in the garden of his mansion, their mansion now. Naomi had fully recovered from her injuries and had finally started nursing school, with Gabriel's full support. The garden was filled with friends for the housewarming party Naomi had insisted on throwing. "Quite a change from the recluse I used to work for," Martha commented, bringing Gabriel a drink. "The house hasn't seen this many people in 15 years." Gabriel smiled, watching as Naomi laughed with some of her friends from the community garden. Change is good, it turns out. To his surprise, he spotted Ethan among the guests, talking with Robert. The brothers had begun the slow process of reconciliation, though trust was still a work in progress. As for Victoria, the retraction had been printed the day after Gabriel's visit to the gallery. She and Richard had withdrawn their offer on Westland properties and had recently announced they were moving to Europe to expand their art business. Gabriel suspected it was more about saving face than any real business opportunity, but he didn't care. Victoria was out of their lives. "Penny, are your thoughts?" Naomi said, appearing at his side and slipping her arm through his. Gabriel pulled her close. "I was just thinking about how one rainy day and a broken-down delivery van changed everything." Naomi looked up at him, her eyes full of love. "For a smart businessman, it took you long enough to realize some deliveries are worth signing for personally." Gabriel laughed, then leaned down to kiss her. Around them, their friends, a new life continued to bloom, as bright and full of promise as the flowers in the garden that had once been his solitary retreat and was now the heart of their home. For 15 years, Gabriel St. James had hidden himself away, convinced that isolation was safety. But Naomi had taught him the truth, that real safety came from finding someone who saw all of you, the good and the bad, and loved you anyway. As they rejoined their guests, hand in hand, Gabriel felt no trace of the fear that had ruled him for so long. With Naomi by his side, he wasn't just existing anymore, he was living, and for the first time in 15 years, he was looking forward to tomorrow.